Mr. Chairman, it is 6:06 p.m. on January 11th, and this is the Hrpb meeting. We're now being live streamed.
Okay, call in order.
Mr. Chair. I didn't turn it off and it's no. You're good.
Okay, we have the roll call.
Steve Pickett, Chip Guthrie, Bob Dorinzo,
Here.
Jamie Foreman, Nadine Heights, Tricia Hallison Mishler, Mariana Gonzalez. You got a quorum.
Okay, for the Pledge of Allegiance. All right, any additions, deletions, reordering?
No, Mr. Chairman.
All right, okay, so can we have a motion for approval of the minutes?
Move to approve the minute, both meetings, right? November 30th and December 7th, 2022. HRPB.
Do I have a second? Okay. We've got a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, nay? It's unanimous. All right, I guess for now we will have swearing of staff and applicants.
So I'm going to go ahead and promote our two online participants. Daniel Menard, I've allowed you to speak, but I just want to let you know you're going to need to rejoin because I'm having difficulty promoting. Oh, wait, good. You just accepted, so perfect. Daniel, can you please turn on your video and unmute yourself?
Can you hear me?
Yes, please turn on your video, sir.
Do you have it?
We do, but we're seeing your ceiling, so I need you to just adjust. There we go. Perfect.
Oh, they had turned the camera around. There we go.
There we go. Okay. Sherry,
Do you plan to give testimony this evening? Please stand and raise your right hand. Do you swear to affirm the testimony you give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? If so, say yes.
yes.
Thank you.
All right, I see on the.
One quick second, sorry, Mr. Chairman. Daniel, which item are you with?
I am with 302 Farnham Drive.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and put you and Stephen back as attendees, okay, until your item comes forward.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
All right, go ahead.
So on the packet that we have proof of publication. There's no withdrawals or postponements, I see. All right, we'll move on to the public hearing then. We have any board disclosures? All right. Our first item of business is it was continued from a previous hearing. I'll let It's HRPB project number 2200100321. Consideration of a certificate of appropriateness for the construction of a new 4,135 square foot single family structure with a sustainable bonus program incentive request for additional FAR located at 324 North K Street. Subject property is located in multifamily zoning district, is a non-contributing property in the Northeast Lucerne Local Historic District, and has a future land use of medium density residential.
Awesome. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So good evening, everyone. Happy New Year. For the record, this is Annie Greening, Senior Preservation Planner for the City of Lake Worth Beach. So like our chair said, this is a COA for new construction with a sustainable bonus request at 324 North K Street. You can see there the location. Next, please. Awesome. So the current lot conditions, it's a vacant lot. The previous structure was a 1924 wood frame vernacular home. This was condemned in February of 2022 and was demolished in April of that year. Next slide, please. So this is what was previously there. It was condemned and demolished. It's currently a vacant site. Next. Awesome. So here's our proposed site plan. So you can see kind of the layout of the driveway, garage, home, and then pool. The pool is technically not part of this. That would be a later permit. Next slide. Awesome. So here's our streetscape. So you can see that the proposed home is taller than the immediate neighbors. Most of those are one-story houses, but it is similar in height to other two-story buildings down the street, as well as that photo there is a two-story, or actually two two-story buildings directly across the street from it. Next slide. Great. So here are our renderings. You can see it's a very modern structure. As the applicants described, they're going for kind of a contemporary rendition of a mid-century style. Next slide, please. And here are our elevations, just again showing the front and the rear. Next slide. And our side elevations there. Next. And then these next two slides are just the floor plans, just to let you see what they're planning. That garage structure is in the front, and then they are connected, next slide, on the second story to create one structure overall. And then next slide again, please. So for zoning, it's consistent with all of our site data requirements, except for the maximum floor area ratio. And the applicants have chosen to utilize the sustainable bonus program to get some additional FAR. Next slide. So how that works out for us in the MF20 zoning district, which is where this property is, applicants can get an additional 0.5 FAR through the sustainable bonus incentive program. So based on our calculations of the additional square feet that they are requesting, the required award value is just over $4,700. They must pay 50% of that to the city, and the remaining 50% could be provided through either qualifying improvements or just paying the rest of the fee. Per the applicants, they are choosing to pay the full fee to the city. Next, please. So getting kind of into our new construction guidelines. So the building, like I said, is a contemporary rendition of a mid-mod. So things like the roof, they're choosing this skillion and lean-to shape, which is compatible with the style and helps it fit a little better with the front gabled structures that are nearby. The height, like we've talked about, is taller than a lot of the immediately adjacent buildings, but it's not unusual for this block. There are plenty of other similarly sized two-story buildings nearby. In terms of fenestration, in general, they're doing okay, but staff has added a condition of approval to add 2 additional windows to the street-facing elevation so that it's not so much blank wall facing people as they're going down the street. And then as for the stucco, very common and compatible within the district and for the style that they're proposing. Next, please. So this kind of goes into some of those same details. Once again, we do believe that based on our design guidelines, their materials, form, and detailing are generally consistent with a contemporary version of the mid-mod style. Next, please. So staff does recommend approval with our conditions that we've drafted for the sustainable bonus request and the new construction. And these are just some additional renderings, kind of an interesting 3D view of the structure. Next, please. So these next couple slides are just our conditions of approval that we've drafted, a lot of our standard window and door requirements, as well as that request for 2 additional windows to be added to the facade. Next, please. And you can keep moving through that one, Erin. And then here we have our potential motions that we've drafted. Thank you.
Okay, does the applicant have any presentation?
Hi, good evening. Giorgio Antoniassi with Antoniassi Architecture. I'm here representing Maxime Fortune for his single-family home on North K Street. I just would like to mention that we've done our best to create a thin structure that would mimic the adjacent shotgun-style houses that we have on that same street. We understand that we're not really matching that typology that is apparent on both sides of us. However, we are providing a face to the mid-century modern multifamily that's right across the street that has a very opaque face as well. So in terms of the harmony of the street, we're kind of matching what's in front of us. And by providing a thin front, and which provides a driveway and a side entry into a garage, we managed to try to create a thinner building instead of a full width building that could be on the 20-foot lot line. And we think that starts to help having this building kind of interrupt that line of shotgun houses that are on that street. As you see, we've taken in this front rendering the time to show that front wall as well, which we think really adds to the face. So we understand, hey, our front door is sort of towards the rear. However, this front property wall with a pedestrian gate becomes part of the facade of the building. I think we do a good job of that. If you compare this building to the mid-century building right in front, you'll find we are doing a much better job than that building did for that street. That building basically is a large vehicular entry and just a concrete screen with a breeze block. So we hope that you understand we're trying to meet the requirements of a house, that people want in today's world and still match well into this neighborhood.
Request.
I do not have an issue with the request. I'd have a little bit of an issue from the owner. Why, if he decides to not move forward for the with the property for any reason, why he has to pay that sustainable bonus. There's some verbiage in there. Within a year's time, half of the sustainable bonus has to be paid to the city. However, what if we plan to build this, but let's say conditions change, why would he still have to pay that to the city?
So that's actually a staff question.
Okay.
In order to vest this development order, you are required to pull a building permit within a year. And the condition reads, prior to pulling a building permit, or within 1 year, you need to pay half. And then I think you actually need is it all of it before the building permit is pulled? Within 1 year of approval or prior to issuance permit, and then it's, I think it's prior. Yeah, the second half is also by the time that the permit is issued. So as soon as you pull a permit, you have to pay the sustainable bonus because you're vesting your approval. And so that captures your additional bonus. So.
Got it.
So if you don't do anything in a year, you lose your approval. So
you lose the approval.
anyway, so then you
So you could not pay it and then lose the approval.
Yes.
Correct.
Mhm.
Okay, understood. One last thing regarding the FAR. That volume that you see past the entrance, it's actually a double height space. So although we are asking for additional square footage for FAR, that's actually not living space. That's just atrium space that's being counted towards FAR. So it's not actually as large as it seems on paper. Volumetrically, yes, but we're paying for that with the FAR, but just for your information. Any questions? Sure.
Just get some clarity. So I know the 2 windows that I'm seeing here are the 2 windows we staff. Is that
No.
right? Or 2 additional?
2 additional.
Okay, yes.
I would love those to be, I personally like how it is, and I know that front elevation is a little bit opaque. However, we do have that balcony that you see from one side, but we're open to adding another window.
So
Correct.
it's two windows and there would be like a square or smaller window under the see, if you look at the top floor, the second floor, you do a smaller window where the wood trim is. No, go over to the front facade where the garage is. Left. All the
So
way
the left image, yep,
Yes.
to the right of that.
here.
So there, and then to the left.
Yes, so see how this is in the garage? So it'd be a window here and then a parity, a balance, a window here. So you can see it's kind of like an exclamation point and an upside down. So there would be. Or it could
Could we
be
have-
two long windows,
Could-
that
Could we make
match.
a condition that we will, instead of adding additional window, that we increase the fenestration rather, because we could make, let's say we double the size of that window, for example, suddenly there's less,
So it's hard to design on the fly.
it is.
And so that would be something we would, if the board wanted to consider, unless you're really comfortable with what he said and you know exactly what you're approving, I would say
I
bring
want
it back.
both options. That's all I'm saying.
Go to a square, like a large.
Right. I want to be able to study one larger window instead of having to add an additional one. But I would just want both options on the table.
What enough here?
I can add another window there very easily. I'm not trying, I'm okay with adding fenestration. I just don't want to be held to just having to add another window. I can make it larger. If I made that, 3 times the size, it would work.
Well, two things. Just by increasing the window, I would wonder what it does with the proportion. So I'd be interested to see how that works. I was also curious about the proposal of having another window over toward the left. I thought I recalled, so there might be a conflict with the floor plan. So I wasn't sure exactly what was going on with the floor plan inside that room that would, if it would allow for a window to be there.
Right.
I think we looked at that, Steve, and I think it was in a bathroom. So that's why we recommended the shorter window.
Okay,
That was why we had recommended the short window here. And then the short window here is because this was going to be in a bathroom.
okay.
So we figured people didn't want a full length window in the
I
bathroom.
guess. I thought that it's like it's a shower stall. Okay.
And we are not bound to this floor plan. So if we find that we need to add another window and we need to adjust that floor plan, we would.
Mhm.
But you want to leave it open to where you can increase the size of that window and or a second window.
Right. And you can say to like stats, like it.
Discretion.
Yeah.
Is staff comfortable assessing those two options or?
Personally, don't have a problem with where it looks, because in other words, because I've seen where we have allowed, not in the historic area, we somehow allowed construction just to have a black wall.
So please be mindful of the fact that the Florida statute exempts single family review. We are not allowed to review single family for design considerations. As long as it meets the Florida Building Code for health, safety, welfare standards, it is illegal in the state of Florida for us to review it architecturally. So that's why
It's in a district.
unless it's in a historic district. So that somehow allowed they went to permit and said, we want to do this, and we couldn't deny them because they met all this life safety regulations. So I would not use that as your standard for decision making.
Then for member would come back and say something. However, with the contemporary design of this, the windows on the front are mimicked in the back as well. So there's you can see the continuity there. But so therefore, if we're requiring extra windows in the front, we're probably going to tell them to put the extra windows in the back as well.
No.
It's fortunate, so that's what I'm saying. It's part of it is.
Right.
And because there are windows, I kind of see it on the top. I don't see it I don't really see the need for another window in the garage. But the window on the top. Again, this is a perspective drawing, so we're kind of seeing it. Is the window rectangular or is it? Or
It's rectangular.
Following the roof line.
It's rectangular. It's rectangular. Yep, yep. But
Okay, this is a little better because you can see what it looks at on.
I mean, it's definitely balanced, but from the staff perspective, they tried to create as much fenestration towards the street as possible. So I understand that concern. I could see a very small element on the left side added on. I agree that I don't think the one in the garage really helps at all. Because we're probably going to have a good amount of landscaping.
I don't see a need for the garage to have fenestration, and I don't know how much of it you're actually gonna see from the street, and it's never gonna be backlit or anything really.
No. Vegetation.
Yeah, vegetation, yeah, all that. I do.
Sorry, this one won't be because it has a balcony slider on the opposite side. And we wouldn't do operable in the garage.
For the upper floor, I could see having a small element over on the left-hand side.
Yeah,
So-
I could see that too. It would work.
Yeah. All right. Any other comment or questions from the board?
And comment about the paying of the deposit and things like that. We have a bunch of these things come up in front of us and they linger. And we make approvals, bend over backwards to make approvals. And then the lot sits there for 2 years.
Right.
They've got the approval. I'm real happy with getting something.
Sure.
It kind of pushes the owner to go ahead and start construction as well. And helps the neighborhood. But I think it's nice to know.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? No. Any comments from any public comment or?
Conditions of approval, could be instead of 2 small windows, we added in the front side, it'll be just 1.
Yes.
I would say one. Yeah, discretion or something. Or,
Yeah,
and what be besides 2 a 6x6 window in the middle. How's that gonna work?
yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, I'll leave that. Just that, give it a shot.
Hi,
Hi.
my name's Jennifer Sarugo and my husband Marcus is over there. I do wish in the photos of the street, you showed the 2 houses on either side, which are 2 small cottages. And then this proposed building in the middle. I want to start by reading from my neighbor, Richard, who's away on business. He says, my name is Mr. Richard Crossley. I live on North.
Let's go ahead and ask the city attorney because you can speak on your behalf, but to read,
Oh, I asked ahead of time. They said it was okay.
they said, the city attorney said it was okay.
Not the city attorney. I don't, I think it was you.
Well,
I can look in the email.
okay, Elizabeth, can you speak to this? I mean, we can accept the letter for the record, but and share it with the board but they really need to provide their own comments. Elizabeth, can she read somebody else's letter?
No, the way you said it is correct, that the letter can be provided and be part of the record of the meeting and each of the board members can read it. But without a designated agent form, we really need that to be just part of the written record.
So he emailed it to me. Can I share it or?
So you give it to Sherry and then Sherry will give it to the board. The board will receive and file. And then because we didn't know this was coming, we can't make copies tonight, but the board can read it and pass it along during the meeting.
Okay, that's disappointing because I asked ahead of time. Okay, so I'm here today to express my deep sadness to this committee regarding the proposed single-family home on 324 North K Street. A short background, my husband and I moved to Lake Worth Beach in April of 2020. His family is from West Palm Beach. Over the last 12 years, we visited a few times a year. We planned a wedding here for April of 2020 and ended up having one of the first Zoom weddings held at Lake Worth Beach on the beach. Since I'm a teacher and my school shut down up north, we found a rental in Lake Worth Beach for the month of March 2020. I had never been to Lake Worth Beach before. I was surprised when we first came here that my husband had never shown me this area, as we both love old homes. I fell head over heels in love with the cottages of Lake Worth Beach. We found a charming cottage to live in for the month. While riding bicycles one night during quarantine, we came across a beautiful, quaint little cottage for sale. Quite unexpectedly, we purchased it the next day. We moved in with one suitcase, our wedding clothes, and not much else. It was a time I will never forget, and one of the best decisions I ever made. We love our life here in Florida. I teach at a local elementary school, and my husband is a property manager. When we heard about the house next door being sold, we mentioned it to somebody we know in the neighborhood. We were happy he bought it because his plan was to renovate the 1926 cottage, 1924 today. Unfortunately, he did not have the correct permits, and I was beyond heartbroken when he had no choice but to tear it down, otherwise face large fees or fines. It felt like a knife through my heart watching the bulldozers bring down an adorable cottage on our historic street. That knife was pushed in further when I first laid my eyes on the plans for the now vacant lot owned by the Fortune Group. I know they have built many homes, but I'm only aware of two in our neighborhood. One is a very modern home, and the other that they are currently working on looks like a modern version of a Lake Worth Beach cottage just up the street on K. I look forward to seeing their finished work. I hoped and prayed that they would build a cottage-style house on the empty lot. This would make up for losing the original home and keep in the character of our street. I was in absolute disbelief when I saw what was proposed to replace the torn down cottage. I've spoken to countless people in my life about this. I've shown pictures of the proposed home to family, coworkers, and friends, and the reaction is almost identical from each person. I show the photos and wait for the reaction. It's always the same, absolute disbelief. How can that be allowed? Don't you live in a historic district? Why would they build that there? It doesn't belong. I can only agree and say, I don't know how this is happening, and I hope that the current plans are not approved. I cannot seem to wrap my head around this modern building, and I cannot see how it will fit into a street with mostly small cottages, a few small apartment buildings, and one multifamily home. I'm a big admirer of what Jackie Onassis was able to accomplish in New York City. So many old buildings were saved because of her efforts, including Grand Central Station. I have the utmost respect for the Gills coming into our small community and saving the Gulf Stream. I attended a few meetings and was thrilled that the commissioners were able to approve the renovation in the end. I wish I had the power, money, or influence to save old buildings, but I do not. I'm just a local teacher who saved her entire life to buy her first home, a historic home, at the age of 53. Speaking out today is all I can do to preserve the unique charm of our street. Every day when I drive home and I pass by the sign that says Northeast Lucerne Historic District at the end of our block, I beg you to reconsider the plans for this house and build something that fits into the character of our unique and cherished historic district. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you mind if I ask your address? From 22.
Do we have any?
You look to the right of the proposed property, you're looking at
If you're facing it, or to the right.
the right, you got the awning.
You'll see a picture of the street.
This
It's
is
okay. They don't really have it. That's very exciting to me that they don't have an accurate picture of what it looks like.
Did I see that? You sure?
So this is the house next door, and that is gonna tower over it. Just by showing that is not an accurate view of the street at all. It's two houses. The rest of the street is little cottages. How is this giant building gonna fit in?
This is across the street.
Directly across, you got the 10 units and the 6 units.
The rest of the street is cottages. And there's an
We have
apartment
a
street
street
at the
there.
house.
This is not the best picture of your cottage.
Exactly, I wonder why.
Well, I mean, they stood across the street, their picture of the lot.
There's no picture of the house next to it.
You never saw it?
Well, I think just showing the apartment building across the street is not an accurate representation of the block.
That's street elevation.
Yeah, so the reason that those buildings right across the street were included on the PowerPoint was because the streetscape just shows, the one half of the street. We did just want to include the, kind of reference that directly across there are other similarly tall buildings. That was the only reason to include those.
But the character is something else.
Well, there is, you are allowed to build a different style of house in a historic district if it's business new construction. And as long as it, it can. What is the wording I'm looking
As
for?
long as it meets city codes guidelines.
It's a modern version of something that is.
But
in
it's
our
this
guidelines.
need for appropriateness, that's what the meeting's called, appropriateness.
So if you'd like, we have several modern styles. This is a street where there on this particular area that there are several cottages. 1 and 2 story homes are typical. I know it's unfortunate sometimes when you have a home and it wasn't because of fees that the gentleman had to. He ran into fire code issues because he had so substantially remodeled the structure. He had functionally demolished it and he had modified all the window openings and had done a bunch of structural work.
This is that house.
Yeah, the house that was demolished to the point where it functionally destroyed the house and could no longer be retrofitted to meet the fire code. So there are certain exemptions for historic structures for fire code, as long as they're not modified over a certain amount structurally. This triggered a bunch of building code issues. For zoning code, you all have the authority to give waivers and to be able to, if there is a certain amount, but there are certain things that you can't do to a historic structure where you're triggering fire code issues because of how tight these homes are here. So that they ran into some fire code issues.
Well, also saying that when we're talking about appropriateness, this word, because if it is a historic structure in the neighborhood and they want to make modifications to it, that is usually what we're talking about appropriateness and how it fits with a particular style of the house historically. However, if you have a vacant lot and you're starting, you're not required to put in a historic cottage on a vacant lot. And we've run, the people have decided to do that, which people have decided to put in more modern. The one that comes to mind is it's Fifth Avenue, there's,
Yeah.
where, again, this is a neighborhood that has, it's very similar makeup. And it does have a lot of cottages, single family, does have across the street, catty corners, got 2-story apartment buildings like what we have here across the street. So in effect, does it stand out from the cottages aspect? Yes. Does it stand out from the 2-story apartment buildings? Yes, in that it's modern and the 2-story is more like what you look at across the street. So the modern design, there's places that it is appropriate. And for new construction inside, as long as it meets the criteria. So I have a hard time. I appreciate your passion for the cottage. I live in one myself. And but I don't necessarily see yeah, see, like this is across the street from it. There's a cottage there. This is a 2-story.
You're not mentioning little cottages there.
No, it's.
But this is a unique neighborhood that, okay, we have the one on Fifth, now we're gonna have this one. What's gonna happen in 10 years? Are there gonna be any cottages left? Or are we gonna be living in Miami now?
Absolutely. I'm just, as long as they are not deemed unsafe, they are to be kept up as historic cottage. If we don't have a choice, if the building official goes and says that it's, that the cottage is unsafe, the structure is unsafe, and he has determined to be unsafe, it must be demolished, and it's, this board has no control over that. They basically notify us that they're going to demolish this structure that was at one point considered historic. But then whatever the owner decides to put up in there, as long as it meets those, they have discretion. And they're coming in front of the board, you know. In this particular case, it's mainly because of the FAR.
No, there, you all have a review of all new construction. And you are tasked with reviewing to ensure that it's that we have a truth in architecture standard. So we have a wide variety of architectural styles in the city, from the mid-modern to the art moderne to the cottage style. So we have a very mixed architectural history. And so our requirement does not dictate in the historic districts, we do not dictate one architectural style, but we say if you're going to build new on a vacant lot, that you're required to have and all be authentic to the architectural style selected. And that is the way our requirements are written. So when you're reviewing modern, you have to say that this meets our truth and architecture standard. That it is indeed a modern, it's functionally modern. It can't be a hybridization of yes, like sometimes you'll see a more suburban with some elements of something. It needs to be a true, a distinctive architectural style. And that's the standard for new construction, because it was difficult in the establishment of the historic districts to establish one style. Because we have such a wide variety of styles in our districts.
That's what I was going to say. There's quite a few different styles within the district, so it's not dictated just by one particular style. And I mean, I live in a house it's not considered a cottage, but it's similar to that or whatever. And I appreciate that. There's several of them like that on my street as well, but there's also several other buildings that are on my street that are not. You know, there's 2-story buildings. There's Spanish revival. There's a whole bunch of different stuff. So
I mean, but modern, to me, that doesn't go so much.
Yeah.
Modern.
So I think we need to move on. Are there any other public comment for this particular item? Okay. All right then, do we have a motion?
Can I mention?
No, the public comments closed yet.
Do you have a motion?
Okay, I'm going to move to approve Hrpb project number 22. There's no one, so there are 1 the staff recommend conditions, except that condition number 1, instead of 2 small windows, there'll be 1 smaller window added to the upstairs right side.
Do we want to add anything regarding staff assessment of how the window proportions work in that?
Yeah, applicant can work with staff on how the portion of that window is, and if there's any issues, if it becomes contentious, think back from the board. And the development orders expiring and then money paid, that's resolved. So anyway, the staff recommendations as outlined. Upper step in the program has been construction of 142 square foot single-family structure, sustainable homes program is set up request for additional FAR. And staff coordination regulations and historic preservation.
Great. We have a motion. Do we have a second? All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? Unanimous.
Thank you for your input. It is heard.
Yeah, let's see the neighborhood in 10 years.
All right, moving on to new business. We have HRPB project number 2200100224. Consideration of certificate of appropriateness for exterior alterations and 2 historic waivers to exceed the accessory structure size limitation and minimum required side setback for the rear accessory structure located at 314 South K Street. Subject property is located within the single-family residential zoning district and has a future land use designation as single-family residential. The property is a contributing resource in the Southeast Lucerne Historic District.
Awesome. Once again, for the record, this is Annie Greening, Senior Preservation Planner for the City of Lake Worth Beach. So up here, once again, we have our location map, so you can get a sense of where this is in our city. And next, please, Erin. So this is our primary structure on the property. This is actually not the part that we're talking about tonight, but I thought it would be helpful to see the main residence. If we could go next. So this is the part we're talking about. This is our rear accessory structure. It was built simultaneous with the front property in 1925, both in the wood frame vernacular style, and both are contributing resources. So this building originally functioned as a garage and was converted to a rental unit in 1952. That rental unit has since lost its vesting as it was non-conforming. And so the building's now proposed to be used as a guest house. This structure did receive COA approval at the staff level back in 2022 for windows, doors, and siding. However, due to the extensive deterioration of the structure, it requires significant structural replacement. So this replacement determination that was made by our building official triggers compliance with the zoning code. To mitigate some of those zoning requirements that aren't met in this historic structure, they're requesting 2 historic waivers. So those waivers would permit the structure not only to exist in its current location, but also its current size and be functionally reconstructed as it existed for 100 years. So this is our site plan. So it shows, it's a 2-story building. One of our waivers is for that north side setback. It's at 3.1 feet. It's a little hard to see right there. But if we'll go next, you can see the elevation drawings on this and the next slide. Basically, the structure itself is not changing. It's just the inside of it needs so much work that we need these waivers. The lot is 30 feet wide. Yeah. Next, please. So these are the other 2 elevations. And if you'll go next again, we've got our floor plans to turn this into a functional guest house. So we've got a kitchenette, guest suites, and bathrooms. Next. So here are our 2 waiver requests, and this is kind of the meat of your decision tonight. So it meets all of the zoning requirements except for the maximum square footage of the structure and that north side setback. So required side setbacks for all 2-story buildings is a minimum of 5 feet in our zoning code. The existing north side setback is 3.1 feet. And accessory structures are currently limited to 40% of the gross square footage of the primary structure. And this existing structure is at 94.4%, largely because of that second story that has always existed.
And I will add that there have been cases where the waiver didn't exist and people wanted to reconstruct something. And so what they did is they connected it with a breezeway. The waiver allows it to be reconstructed as a functionally distinct structure as it was historically. So they could rebuild, maybe not in this exact location, but if the waivers aren't granted, it'll be demolished. It doesn't have to be demolished.
They're rebuilding the building.
It will have to be demolished
So-
if you don't grant the waivers. Yeah.
Yeah, so what we're talking about, we're getting these waivers so that they can do what we consider a functional reconstruction, where they're not tearing the whole building down and starting fresh. It's just basically that functional reconstruction means that over 50% of that structure interiorly is going to have to be replaced because of water damage, rot, that sort of stuff.
Well, first of all, it's garage, downstairs was garage that was converted to a apartment.
before
Yep.
you were born.
Yeah, it was all converted in 1952.
Yeah, I don't have a problem. I have no problem at all with setback because the setback has changed since.
Well, let's just see if Annie has her presentation finished first, then we can continue on with the discussion.
That's okay. So kind of like we walk through our variance criteria, we've got 4 waiver criteria set in our land development regulations. So for criteria A, staff do believe that this, it's not going to further any existing nonconformities. It just maintains what's been there. This size of rear accessory structure is not unusual within the surrounding neighborhood or the district as a whole. And the style of the existing accessory structure, as well as their proposed repairs of it, is in harmony with the style and the neighborhood. So then moving on to waiver criteria B, we don't believe that it has a substantial oral or visual impact because these impacts have been this way for the past 100 years. It's not changing any impacts to neighbors. It's just maintaining what exists. Except nicer, yes. So C, kind of similar. We don't think it'll be detrimental to public health or welfare. Ideally, it would make the structure safer for public health and welfare. And for D, we do believe that these are the minimum adjustment necessary to allow reasonable use of the structure as it currently exists. Like Aaron mentioned, without these, the structure will have to sit unused or be demolished because it's unsafe. So it's actually just a guest house. So it's not a rentable unit. It would function as a subservient use. Yeah.
Whatever.
Yep. Yeah, or a mother-in-law suite, that sort of thing. And we have conditioned it, so it's under our zoning code. It's not allowed to be rented out.
In a minute too, but are you finished now or?
Basically,
Okay,
we
I
recommend
just wanna make
approval
sure
with
you're
conditions.
complete.
So, yes.
So basically, I mean, in my mind, the waiver, that particular waiver for allowing the square footage or whatever is, and even with the setback is kind of a formality. I mean, it's basically allowing the building to be restored
Right.
to its historic original condition. So
Those photos there are some of the inside, which might give you a hint as to why it has so much structural need.
right. Back,
I'm surprised that this one didn't meet criteria for them.
It could be condemned and demolished. The property owner would like to not have to demolish it. So that's why they're asking for the waivers. But yes, it does meet the criteria. If they wished to condemn it, they could.
What is the requirement on this one? I mean, obviously, there's gonna be engineering involved. So he's gonna, the whole reconstruction of this will have to be engineered.
Yeah, from what I understand, the property owner and his team have been working quite a bit with Peter Ringel, our building official, to make sure that all of the structural requirements are met and made safe.
This is a heavy lift to reconstruct this.
Yeah.
So it's not typically not most property owners are not looking to do that with a building in this condition. And we're really grateful that and excited that they're interested in restoring it because it would have been loss of this
and there's
structure.
criteria that they have to follow in order for it to be still considered historical restoration as well, I would imagine,
They need to-
with the new portions.
Yeah, they have to, they need to reconstruct it. They need to only repair what requires repair. And which is, you can see pretty much everything structural. And then they'll retain as much siding and as much original materials as they are able to. And they're going to be working with Annie and Peter to retain as much as they can.
And I did have a question about the floor plan, as far as the fact that it's no longer permitted to be an ADU, but has a kitchen in it.
So they are permitted to have a kitchenette. They aren't permitted to have a full stove, but they can have things like a microwave, mini fridge. All of that is totally fine and doesn't trigger an ADU designation.
Just wanted to make sure about that. Not that I'm against ADUs, I just want to make sure that we're covered.
So if they do decide to engage in that activity and they are noted, they will be subject to a code violation and code enforcement action if it's determined that they are renting it out. So obviously, this is not something where we would approve new, but
Right.
it is an important, we don't have a lot of structures at this age point. I mean, we have a good amount, but we don't have any 100-year-old structure is something.
And I'm mistaken, they paint a shutter on one side of one of them.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the history behind that is, but there is a partial painted shutter, like the top of that shutter is painted.
Here's your shutter. Yeah.
I think there's a photo with this, but
No, no doubt.
So I see there's some conditions of approval in here that are specific to this particular project as well, and they're not just sort of the boilerplate. Does the applicant have any issues with?
Yeah.
No, I don't believe the applicant's here tonight, but yeah, most of the conditions here that address things like doors, windows, all of that, they've been privy to. Those were part of the previous approval that we had given them prior to this structural issue kind of coming to light. So they're privy to those and they are amenable to all of those.
Okay. Do we have any other comments or questions on the project?
what is the full structure then?
Yeah, that front structure, you might recall, I believe went before the Hrpb for rehabilitation in 2017, maybe.
30-foot wide.
Yeah.
And the floor level of the rear living space downstairs, is that anywhere near what is it anywhere near what it should be? No, I'm not talking about bringing it up to any matter or whatever the requirement is. Do we have any idea? I mean, it looks like it's sitting almost below the grade. Staff is recommending that we approve the.
Yeah, we are. If they have a finished floor elevation issue, then what they would be required to do is to retain the doors in their same position. And they could then step up in the house and because they have to be in it. Obviously, the doors have to open anyway outwards in Florida. But you can do there's a flood adaptation where you internally adapt the structure and raise the internal structure. And that could be applied here to keep the exterior facade. If they raise the floor to meet the habitable floor space inside. So that's an adaptation. It could just be maybe a little extra lid or something. And the door could open outwards and be below the finished floor elevation. So that's an easy adaptation that we can handle at permitting.
Any other questions or comments? No. All right, do we have a motion?
I move to approve HRPB project number 22-001-0024 with staff recommendation. Recommended conditions with certificate of appropriateness for exterior alterations and 2 historic waivers to exceed the accessory structure side limitation and the minimum required side setback in the rear accessory structure located at 314 South K Street based upon competent substantial evidence in the staff report pursuant to the City of Lakewood Beach Land Development Regulations for preservation requirements.
We have a second. Second. Good. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay.
Nay.
Okay, yep. One opposed and four approving, so it passes. Hrpb project number 22001003 for consideration of a certificate of appropriateness for the demolition of existing structures and construction of a new 2,890 square foot single family house at 338 Cornell Drive, West Lot. Subject property is located in the single family residential zoning district and has a future land use of single family residential. Property is a contributing resource in the College Park National and Local Historic District.
Awesome. So once again, this is Annie Greening, Senior Preservation Planner for the City of Lake Worth Beach. So our property here, you may remember it has come before for conceptual review. This is on Cornell near North Dixie Highway. If you could go next slide, Erin. So some property history, since this is a demolition and new construction, we'll go into a little more detail. So College Park, originally platted in 1924, this property was platted as 4 25-foot lots, and the existing house and garage were built in 1925 in the mission style. This was one of the most common styles in the College Park district in that area, or in that era. So that's the existing house. You can't see the garage very well right there, but the building has sat vacant for a while, and in May 2022, the building official issued a declaration of unsafe conditions because of water and termite damage. Like I said, it came before you all in September 2022 for conceptual review, and in October, the applicants did receive a zoning letter deeming the request to split the parcel into two 50-foot parcels, subject to your approval of the demolition and new construction. So we are here. You can see kind of a 3D view as well as the existing survey for the property showing the structure and the garage in the rear. And so next, please, Erin. So we're going to walk through just kind of the highlights of the demolition request. These were covered in the staff report as well as the applicant's justification statement. But these structures at 338 Cornell are contributing to the College Park National District. Staff has contended that they are unlikely to qualify individually as individual landmarks. And there are other remaining examples of this style in the city. So these aren't the one and only that we have here. But next slide, please. Despite the current state of the building, staff believe that they do still contribute to the historic character of the district that they're in. They represent not only these styles of the era, but the Florida land boom and the associated development that happened in Lake Worth and throughout the state during that time. We do believe that the loss of these structures would be a significant loss for the district. This is a prominent residence, 2-story on a somewhat prominent location. The applicant has agreed to document the building prior to demolition if you all approve that demolition request, so that we have record for the future of what was once here. And staff do believe that retaining the structure would provide an opportunity to study local history, architecture, and design, which is one of our criteria that we would like you all to consider for this demolition.
And Annie, can you just explain, this is in a national district?
Yes.
And why is that different than our local districts and with condemnation?
Sure. Yeah. So like we were talking about with one of the earlier projects, most of the time condemnation means that you all just get to comment. Because this is a contributing National Register property, you all now have the power of approval over demolition. So it's a unique element that gets triggered by national significance. So next, please. This is the garage in the back. You can see it is in very rough shape. The application does propose simultaneous demolition and new construction. It is a condemned building. So repair would likely be expensive. And staff does refer or defer to our applicants regarding issues of economic return or economic hardship. Those are considerations in your demolition criteria. But at this point, no specific evidence regarding either of those economic arguments has been submitted. So next, please, Erin. So kind of moving into the proposed new construction, this is the site plan. You can see they've got an integrated garage at the front and potentially a pool at the back. And next, please. So here we have our streetscape. You can see in this both, actually, later we'll get to the nearby property, but you can see both proposed new constructions, a couple of the nearby residential structures, and then to the left, there is a commercial structure that faces Dixie Highway. So here are the front and rear elevations for the proposed structure. That one on the left is our front. And next, please. So these are our sides, and we'll keep moving through to the floor plans. The left is the first floor, the right's the second floor. And then if you can go one more, Erin, we've got some renderings that help kind of give a sense volume-wise of the building. And then we'll go one more into zoning. So the structure is consistent with site data requirements on our zoning code, and they are requesting additional FAR. Unlike the project 2 properties ago, this is not a sustainable bonus request. Our zoning code does allow an additional 0.05 FAR for single family districts, given that the building is LEED certified or Florida Green certified once it's constructed. So we've added conditions of approval relevant to that. Additionally, we wanted to note in this zoning section real quick, while the site does meet its parking requirements based on the driveway spaces, the size of the garage internally is not actually long enough to meet our parking requirements. So we have added a condition of approval as well to increase the length of that parking garage so you could fit a whole car in. Yeah. Okay, so moving again back to preservation out of zoning. We have our additional guidelines for new construction. Staff believes that this building is designed with elements of the Mission Revival style, which is the same style as the building it's replacing. It's compatible with many elements, size, setbacks, exterior finish, roof shapes, but we do have concerns that we've shared with the applicant about size and proportion of openings, the symmetry of certain elements such as the chimney and some of the windows, as well as just the style overall. Staff feels like it combines too many contemporary elements to feel authentic and true to the Mission Revival style. And so if you go one more slide, Erin, we've got our design guidelines analysis that gets a little more detailed. Like we've talked about, we're seeking truth in architecture. So emulating a single style and incorporating all of the correct window proportions, massing, symmetry, materials, all of these elements to make it feel like it is authentically the style it's supposed to be. So if we go to the next slide, Erin, these are kind of some of staff's concerns. So windows are out of proportion. Historically, windows weren't floor to ceiling, those would have been doors. The first and second stories were the same height as each other, which gives kind of a top-heavy appearance and is not how buildings were historically constructed. The thinness of the parapet on the entry porch was atypical. And then we also had some concerns with the balcony and how it affected symmetry on the front of the building as well. So we suggested shifting some elements so that the front, the balcony is not visible from the front. If you go to the next slide. So we also had some questions about the muntin patterns. Again, they're atypical for the style they're emulating. And then the arches, most of them are this kind of flat arch with corner, rounding at the corners. This, is evident in this style, sometimes in vehicular uses, so things like carports or garages. But we had concerns with that shape for the entry porch and suggested using smaller rounded arches. This is kind of a rough sketch shown in, but just kind of give you the idea of what we were looking for there. If you'll go to the next slide, Erin. Oh, yeah.
I wanted to add to as part is to make the balcony a functional balcony by making the front element more prominent. And then allowing that would have been more historically typical than what was provided by the applicant.
Yeah, even if they didn't want to make it, that you could literally walk out on it, it emulated what would have been a functional balcony. So the applicant did provide staff with some revised drawings this morning and indicated that they will potentially show some more revisions tonight as well. So staff hasn't had the opportunity to do a full review of them. And I know that they weren't included in your packet either, but they do seem to start to address issues of proportions and front porch parapet, that sort of thing. So it is encouraging. If you'll go to the next slide, Erin, we do have continued concerns about a few things. The width between the arches on that front porch is still really thin and just feels a bit off. The arch on the other side of that porch isn't matching. And we had some questions about that large arched door on the west elevation, some asymmetry in the muntins, and it seems to be lacking a stoop to walk out on. So the applicant has been amenable to start to make some of these revisions, but staff do still believe that we need some more time, the applicant might need some more time, and you all might need some more time to get fully revised drawings in for our review and your review. So if you'll go next, Erin, we recommend continuing this project to another meeting. Like I said, it just gives everyone a little more time to implement some of these revisions, whether that's staff comments or any comments you all might have tonight. We're particularly concerned about getting this one right since it's potentially replacing a National Register listed building. If we're replacing it with the style that was here originally, we want to do it right. So if you all so move, we do have conditions of approval that we've also included that, could be added or edited. But we had those there in case you all felt comfortable approving it tonight, but we do recommend continuing it. So as usual, the next slides just have our conditions of approval as well as our draft motions.
Yes, but it's not quite there yet. We got to give the applicant a chance. No, you'll get there.
Okay. And so, yeah, our applicant's representative is here and the architect is also here on Zoom tonight.
Okay, before we move forward on it, are we debating, I guess, or discussing the demolition and this replacement at the same time, or can we
Yes, they're
discuss it
concurrent.
separately?
They're concurrent. So you need to, in order to approve the new construction, you have to approve the demolition.
Okay.
And it is a unique case when there is a national district, you do have additional authority because it rises.
Okay. All right, we'll move forward with the applicant's.
Wes, did you have a
presentation.
PowerPoint? I'm sorry.
No, I didn't.
Okay, good.
We'll just refer to the staff report.
Goodness.
We need. And Stephen has some graphics too he can share.
Hold on one second. Let me just
Good evening. How are you? Happy New Year. Wes Blackman, AICP Certified Urban Planner with CWB Associates, and I'm here representing and on behalf of Emerald Isle Home Builders, who is the owner of the property. And this is an application for demolition and new construction. And after hearing the staff report, we agree. We're on the same page with the staff concerning the consistency of the comprehensive plan, concerning it meeting the standards of the SFR zoning district. We are doing a Florida Green Building certification that allows for a small increase in FAR. And we also agree with the findings and suggestions in the report for new construction in historic districts. And we do take the comments from the staff in terms of the architecture style very seriously too. We're in a bit of a pickle. because I just want to walk through a timeline here for you to give you an idea of the history of the property since the current owners have owned it and what has happened with the condemnation and so forth, and how it's affecting the neighborhood. The property owner applicant bought the property in April of 2022. And they commissioned a structural assessment, which is included in the application by Altec Engineering. And it concluded that more than 30% damage exists in the structural elements of the building. And it consisted of substantial structural damage. Peter Ringel issued a declaration of unsafe conditions based on his staff's visit to the property. And we had a meeting via Zoom June 10th, where we were under the assumption and not aware, it's just one line in the historic preservation section of the LDRs about when it is in a National Register district, it does raise to a level that it does require a COA. It's not just a notification of the chair of the Hrpb. So at that point, the property owner had put in for a permit as if notification was just given and the COA wasn't required. So all that work is done and it's just pending the COA for demolition. Then during July and August, we had this situation where there weren't enough people on the Hrpb to have a quorum. And then we were here in September for the conceptual review and we got your input and we took that and digested it and worked it around a little bit. Finally got our application in addressing the demolition criteria, which meets the requirements and along with the new construction requirements that is in the application. And then we addressed some zoning issues in terms of the FAR and some staff concerns. And we had another submittal. And then we got the architectural comments at the end of last week. So that would have been Friday. And today is Wednesday. So we have had an opportunity to address many of them. And the one that I sent staff today included the adjustment of the first and second floor plates, the floor plates, so that the first floor is higher than the second floor and addresses the proportion issue there. We also reproportioned the windows in a similar manner so that the second windows were smaller. Altered the front porch, and that probably still needs some adjustment. We did go to a 1.5 garage, which the architect will show you in a few minutes. That's Stephen Morales. He's with Plus Architecture, and he is also sick tonight, so he's attending virtually. We're able to center the second floor window above the garage door. And today they were working on additional revisions, including the arch on the east side of the front porch, adopting one of the suggested button configurations and notch out the southwest corner of the building so that the first and second floor, including the balcony, are pulled back from the south elevation, which will round out the centering exercise. And we are concerned about the existing building and the garage, which is essentially falling in on itself. And it is an attractive nuisance. There have been instances of squatters and so forth that we've effectively caught, but it is an issue with the neighborhood. And I live a block away. So it is a concern of mine too. So what we're asking for is some sort of dispensation if there is any way to go ahead with the demolition request that is sitting on the shelf and ready to go while we finalize the architectural details. So that's the only difference we have in our frame of mind with the staff.
Just 1 second. Just 1 second. We have a board member who has to leave, so we still have quorum, so we can still discuss, but.
Okay, that's okay.
Do we have a copy of Peter Ringel's report?
Yeah, his letter is in the application. It's in the backup. It's in, I wrote it down here. Attachment D, Exhibit B. That's the Alltech engineering report. And then right after that, I think Exhibit C is Peter Ringel's letter. And that's from May 31st. And as luck would have it, whoever put together the agenda put together the west lot first, and that's been our problem child. And the much stronger architecture is the east lot. So we get to put our worst foot forward.
The house is situated now. Is it situated in the middle of 100-foot lot?
No, it's not. It can almost stand its own. It's short of a foot of being conforming, except for the east side on two 25-foot wide lots, which is a 50-foot lot.
It's on its own 50.
And when the people who owned it bought it, it was two separate deeds and then they were combined. Yeah, but that was the previous owners, not the current owners.
Are there any pictures of the interior?
There are in the Alltech report, and I have taken independent pictures that will be used for documentation.
Before we get into questions, presentation.
No, our architect is online and is ready to share some additional drawings. Okay.
Gentlemen, we usually don't allow share from home. We're trying not to because I have to give a lot of permissions. So because we've worked with you for a while, I'm going to go ahead and allow it. But just be mindful that we're not really supposed to do this. We really need the documentation prior to the meeting if you're going to share because it's a security issue for us because I have to functionally make you a host.
Okay.
So
Well, can we ask Stephen then if he has anything new? Because the only thing that I have seen, and it's somewhat of a risk to me too, and the client, is that I haven't seen what he's about to share. So if he doesn't have anything new to share, it's not an issue because you've already shown that in part of your presentation.
do you have anything new to share, Steve, other than what we've shown in the presentation?
Yes, basically what was requested by the client yesterday. I can email it to you as well and you can review it briefly.
Go ahead and share it for right now, but just, we try not to do this because, you're an architect, so you're a licensed person, but, we try as a rule not to, do this. So go ahead and.
Understood. Thank you.
Somebody could show anything. That makes sense?
Yeah, we don't.
Yeah.
I have a vivid imagination.
Well, it has happened in other cities, apparently.
Yes. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So these are the renderings. It is basically the same packet that we submitted. Just a site plan, existing pictures of the condition of the building, precedent in terms of our design decisions, precedent in terms of the arches that were used in Mission Viejo, the site plan, the floor plan initially the way we had it, the floor plan how we have changed it. So if you can see, shows the notch, making it a 1-car garage, pushing this back to have the 20 feet as per your request. So that's the change in the plan. Basically, again, the initial proposal that we had, the studies that we did with the arches as well as a proposal. The new and I guess the most updated versions are these. So we've changed the proportions of the windows as per your request. We increased the size of the
parapet.
The space, the parapet. We pushed back the balcony, creating that notch. We made it a 1-car garage, centering the window as well. Actually, something that you didn't have updated was the arch on the corner has that same arch. What else? I think those were those were all the updates.
Centering of the chimney, a lot of miscellaneous things and the.
Yeah, oh yeah,
changing-
yeah, the centering of the chimney, basically, and on that, in between the windows.
And you had a concern about the double section there.
Yeah, so the double arch was something that we had, said would be a good alternative. It would give kind of a consistent arch size throughout. It's just that kind of connector bit between the two of them is really thin, which is a bit atypical. So if it was widened a bit, it would make the arches smaller, but it would give the sense of weight that would be historic.
6, 8 inches a foot.
We need to, see, this is the problem is it's hard to design at a meeting. So
Right.
if you guys are comfortable with staff making those decisions, what we would say is you would concur with staff's direction that it needs more weight, and then we would have to work it out with them, because there might be something else that comes up in the design. And then we're like, well, we could add more weight, but then that makes that weird. And then we got to change that. So I mean, this is part of where we get the recommendation to make the changes, continue and come back. But I understand the applicant has a time crunch, so.
Push down the road.
I will say that you all gave them design direction, and we gave them very specific design direction at the pre-application meetings that we wanted a true to form and style. And I think we were shocked when it came back in and we felt like there were not substantial changes from what you already saw at conceptual. We kind of felt unheard. And so we wanted to make sure when we got it, that we got it right before you. So if you all are comfortable and you feel like what they've done has evolved it enough that we can tweak it, and you want to give staff authority for final approval on the design, I mean, that's up to you. Or you can do it the other way.
Well, the only one I put that up is that demolition was connected to the.
Yeah, I believe Wes tonight is acting for the demolition to be separate, which is not in our code.
Yeah. Well, what we would like is the demolition of the COA to be approved, but then you shift your authority to the staff to work out the details with the final architecture and the direction we're headed now.
Well, yeah, I would like to discuss the demolition, definitely. I think I'm totally confident in staff's ability to work with the applicant and to work something out, but I still want to see it coming back, definitely. But for me personally, I would like to see like what our options are as far as this demolition approval. I have a real concern about that. And I want to know,
That's what I was going to recommend. I think the demolition is really a key central conversation.
right, before we start talking about a house that's replacing a house that's still there.
Well, let's, if you guys are, before you get into board discussion, I know we have some public comment. If you want to hear public comment before you get into board discussion.
Yes.
Thank you so much. Good evening. My name is Leisha O'Hara. I live at 331 Cornell Drive. So I'm not directly across from the house that you all have been discussing. I'm like a little bit catty, but I see it every day. And I have been seeing it every day for over 20 years. So I know a lot about the house, even though I've never lived there. And first of all, I want to thank all of you and also your city staff, because I know how much work you all put into this with very little thanks and no compensation for all of you guys. And I can see from what you have presented, how much work has been done, with all the details and all the thought that has gone into the new buildings. And I've heard Mr. I think is it Blackman discuss all the details, tweaking it, et cetera, et cetera. And I appreciate all the work that everyone has done. But to me, the real issue is what our neighborhood is all about. And that street does not have anything modern going on. And I understand that some people might feel that's like a blend of the historical style and the new style. In my mind, it is not, but I'm a diehard, so I apologize if that's offensive to anyone. The real issue is whether or not the house that has been standing there since 1925 should be demolished. The new owner, the developer, bought that property knowing that it was historical. And I'm sorry, but they have chosen to let it go into more disrepair than it was already when it stood there vacant. The old owners at least had some caretakers coming in, making sure that the moisture level is okay. They had the AC running. It has a new air conditioning system, a new electrical panel. The windows are fairly new because there was water damage from the roof. I live in a historical home myself, and I know what a sucker for money these homes are. You have to love these homes to want to buy one and to get yourself into that kind of debt and that kind of work. That house has been tented recently for termites. My house has been tented for termites. My house has had water damage from roof repairs. I have repaired all those things. And I believe truly that that house can be brought back to just a beautiful gem for this neighborhood. I really do. And the interior of the home that you have not seen, I've had the pleasure of walking through it. And yes, it has a lot of damage, but it has things in there that you can't even get anymore, like the Cuban tile floors. When you walk into the house to the left, there's the broken tile Cuban style that is very, very rare, even in our neighborhood. There's a beautiful fireplace. The arched doorways. Those are all things that contribute to the beauty and the uniqueness of the home. And that has been totally disregarded. That right now on Zillow, I'm sure you all are aware of this. There are the two homes that are being discussed. They are on Zillow for sale as though they have already been built, with overlooking the pool in the back and beautiful balconies. There's a full description. Nowhere does it say on these listings that these homes have not yet been built. And if you click on there, apparently, I just looked at it on my phone, you can request a tour of the homes at 9 a.m. tomorrow. I think that's really, I'm sorry, arrogant to say the very least. And they have not gotten the board's approval to demolish that home or to subdivide the lot into two different ones and to build these two huge homes that are not in keeping with the rest of the homes on that street. We had an inadequate notice of time. When we got the notice, it was after January 2. There are affected parties such as myself. And I didn't realize until I read it a couple of days after receiving the letter that I should have filed something saying I'm an affected party. So I apologize for that. And the thing is that the house is unique, contributes to the historical standing of College Park. That's why people like me have bought into these homes that are sucking the money and life out of us. And we love these homes, and to me, and the fact is that since this house has been purchased by the new owner, the builder, there's no caretaker. The yard rarely gets even a mowing. There are all kinds of trash in the alleyway that in the yard of that house, because it is directly behind a liquor store. There are homeless people living in that dilapidated garage right now. I took a picture of one of them this morning when I was walking the dogs. I see them every day. And there are drunks there, and the owners, they don't care. I understand this is all about money for them. They bought the land and they wanted to, from the beginning, demolish that house and build these two big houses and make a lot of money. And I understand and respect the value of money and that it's a business decision for them. But I don't believe it is appropriate to demolish a home like that. It has damage, yes, but it can be repaired and it can be a beautiful home again. And I don't believe it's I don't believe it's something that should be allowed, because it's not the same as building these modern style homes on a vacant lot where a house has already been demolished. You have the power today to say yay or nay to demolishing this beautiful home. And I'm asking that you deny them the right to demolish this house. If I had had the money to buy the house when it was on sale, I would have done it. It's just that my house is sucking my money. I couldn't afford to fix up a second house. I wish that someone who treasures old architecture and old homes had bought that house and that we were not in this predicament. And I know it's a difficult decision for everyone. And I understand that the builder is not going to be happy about this, but I am really thinking that this is what they are proposing is not in harmony with what is on the rest of that street. There are no modern buildings like that and nothing of that size.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry to take up so
No,
much of your time.
Thank you. For your interest and passion in it. So. Any other public comment? No.
I should probably volunteer. I live right across the street from this house. So I live next door to Lee and I live right across the street. So I see it every day. Just want to put that on the record. I don't think it's a conflict or anything.
I respond to some statements or items.
No, public comments, not a discussion. If the board asks a question, you can answer.
Do we have questions from the board? For Mr. Blackman or discussion of those?
I've got a question, if you don't mind, Wes, a couple of questions. You mind? I'm the attorney here, so I look at these words really carefully. And in the additional requirements for demolition states that the applicant has to demonstrate that no other feasible alternative to demolition can be found. That's kind of a high standard, I think. Somewhat.
Yes.
Okay.
And what we're relying on there is that the building official has deemed this an unsafe structure, that it is physically unsafe for a person to go inside the door because the structure could fall on them.
But that can be mitigated, correct?
I can tell you, and this is partially in response to the public comment, is that the owners of the property, and I wish they were here tonight, they're on a long postponed vacation because of COVID and other things, and they could not make this meeting tonight. But their heart and soul is in this property, and they thought long and hard about the decision and the building that was there in terms of keeping it. And so painting them as callous developers is not appropriate.
Well, I just want to make sure we're operating with the actual accurate information before the decision. I just want to clarify a few things. So another question, it says to defer to the applicant on number 8 here, is the building or structure capable of earning reasonable economic return on value. It says defer to the applicant. I would assume yes, but I don't know. What's the answer to that or?
I answered in the response. So whatever I wrote as part of the application, that was addressed. And we agree with the staff recommendation. It seemed like a soft recommendation for demolition, but they seem to rely on what we stated as part of our justification.
And I think Lee brought this up too, but the last one is, have reasonable measures been taken to save the building from further deterioration? I mean, it's kind of been a hands-off approach from what I understand. I don't know.
Yeah, that's why I walked through the calendar because they've only had it since April of 2022. And the thought was that not being aware that it was a National Historic District and the implication that had in terms of the demolition COA, they thought they were operating under a different set of standards. So, and the assumptions were made by that. And then we're here tonight.
So just clarifying question.
Yes.
Yeah.
Understand.
I will add that in the pre-application meeting, staff did recommend that they functionally reconstruct the house, which would, which could occur. And with waivers or with maybe modifications to the structure, because I know part of the investment plan is to split the lot and to do the new unit. We weren't opposed to the new unit as staff. It was more, could they functionally reconstruct or reconstruct to the best of their ability where it would preserve that as a representation of the house that was there maybe with some modifications on the side. And they wanted to do the two new with the paired. You remember when they came in with the matching, and when we were like, no matching. So then that evolved into this design that's before you today. But our original recommendation to them was to reconstruct, which is a form of preservation. It is not the idealized form, but it is, we understood the market demands and the cost of property, as an investor, to do the restoration or do the reconstruction, and then to use the second lot to help fund that. So that was our consistent thought.
Real quickly, I come from the background. I don't know how, if y'all served on boards in the past, but I did with Wes actually, when this was part of the planning and zoning, and we made some very difficult decisions back then. Some young families coming in. I remember one gentleman had a newborn in his arm and he bought a bungalow over here on Federal Highway. And we were very rigid about preserving that building to the point where he had to let it go and move on because he couldn't afford it because he started a new family. So I come from a place where we have a consistency of being really quite strict. My history, at least, has been really quite strict on preserving these buildings. So that's where I'm coming from when I sit up here and have these conversations. So I just wanted to share that. So
Any other questions of me?
No.
May I interject? Excuse me, may I interject?
Does the board, does anybody from the board have a question for
Well,
Mr. Wallace?
Before we get
Yes.
into any questions, I'm sorry, Mr. Morales, but the thing that strikes me is that we are bumping right over demolition. We've been having a large conversation about what the options of the buildings are going to look like. And I don't think we've had an ample discussion about
I agree.
the need to demolish the structure that's there. I happen to, that was the exact same thing I was thinking. I would be, as a board member, I would be more apt to say, let's go ahead and let them split the lot, use the eastern lot, a newer structure, which would unfortunately probably end up looking like a modern structure that you saw in the depiction, because they're allowed to do that in a historic district. But no, they are allowed to do that. So in other words, they have leeway, but I'm kind of not upset, but it's just like this is being presented as we're already, it's demolished. An unsafe building does not necessarily mean it's got to be demolished. There is not a demolition order on this one, which we normally receive. Saying it's unsafe means it can't be occupied. It can be repaired. The pictures that I've seen demonstrated here, such as, just off the top of my head, the roof, somebody has allowed the roof to accumulate huge amount of leaves underneath there, which could deteriorate the roof even more. Support of the other side of the house with cinder blocks. Well, guess what? Until these other companies started up with raising things, that's what they did in the last 100 years. If you compare this structure to the one that we just said they're going to allow to, I cannot in reality say, okay, here we have a structure that's basically going to be a rental unit that we know is going to be a rental unit. We're going to let them redo that one, even though it's out of, it doesn't meet any codes. It isn't a multifamily neighborhood, but now we're looking at an actual historic
National.
register of this place, and it can be rebuilt, it can be renovated. Yes, they will need to take out the damaged wood, and they'll need to jack up the floors a little bit, and they'll need to do some things. This here from the front is exceptional. In the architecture. It's not, it's exceptional in the front when you look at that. And to try to get something that's going to look similar to that, that can be brought back. I don't see anything in the engineering that says that it is unable to be brought back, or it must be. I don't see anything that a demolition order could be illegal. Yes, it's unsafe as it stands now. It remains safe. So I want to discuss the demolition first of all, and take it from there. Because anything that I've seen so far, I would not be inclined to grant a demolition order. I would be inclined to separate the lots and allow them to build a new structure on the second lot, because I understand it doesn't quite comply with the setbacks and like that. I mean, that's a waiver that we can discuss.
Mhm.
So that the owner has some direction from the board, is the way I'm looking at it.
No, I agree, and I think that we have to have a serious discussion about the proposed demolition of it. It's, you know, a pretty substantial building. I agree. I think it looks like it's still in the kind of shape where it could be restored. I would, you know, wonder if we could suggest having a, you know, professional come in that does that type of restoration and actually assess it to see what it would take to have the building restored. Because I'm not there yet as far as saying that it should be demolished. And I also, if we have it within our power, I think we need to have, you know, basically say that they have to maintain the building and make sure that it doesn't deteriorate further, and they need to secure the property while this is going on.
Mhm.
If that's not what's happening now.
Absolutely, we can definitely follow up with that. I think though, if you wanted to consider the demolition of the garage structure versus the house as two separate items, that might be something, because the garage is.
Yeah, the garage is basically, yes,
Would the board want to look at that and say the garage must be restored and reconstructed like it was there and was that?
In somebody's backyard.
Yeah, so, but I know that's pushing it, it's part of the property. And the garage is accessible from the alley.
well, is that something that needs to happen in order for it to maintain its status?
Well, I mean, also too,
You have to maintain the accessory structure the way it was for it to maintain its status.
Well, the accessory structures can contributing in their own rights. So they would have a separate status. So, but it would help if it was eventually reconstructed. But I think, you know, I mean, you guys have given the applicant a lot to chew on. Part of why I requested the continuation was because there was a lot more here to discuss. I do know Mr. Morales is chomping at the bit to say something. So if you wanted to acknowledge him, just speak for a minute or two, because he does represent the applicant on
Okay.
this.
Sure. Mr. Morales?
Hi, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
yes.
Okay, thank you. Yes, I just wanted to give you a history of why the decision to demolish was made. Actually, the very intent of the client and my initial contract was to remodel the house and to build a new house in the adjacent lot. My team started to go out there. We started to look at things. When that house was initially walked through, the previous owner had a clutter of everything inside. The house was not completely visible in every aspect. The second time that we went around, once the property was purchased, we decided to look at everything, and we noticed that basically the floors were unsafe. The floors were uneven. There were cracks along the wall. Parts of the windows, you could tell that they were not aligned. There was major structural items that were of our concern. Part of my team is actually working with structural engineers. And so to make this safe, obviously our next choice was to bring out the structural engineer. So we hired a structural engineer to come out. He was going to be part of the team and basically give an assessment of what would be needed. If you really look at the report, it breaks down why these conditions are absolutely almost irreversible. Main reason is because the main structural components are almost irreplaceable. There's actually pictures from when they put the new windows in that showed how much the wall had deteriorated within the frame. So the exterior frame of the building itself, it would have to be replaced. I believe the engineer's words were around 60 to 80%. The floor system itself in the second floor. There was just parts where I would believe about 4 to 6 inches where the floor was just off level. There was a bathroom that had an old iron tubs that basically had damaged that entire portion of quadrant of the house. Then once we moved up to the roof itself, basically the roof just had levels that showed that there were portions of the walls that were disconnected from the house itself. So in disconnecting from the house itself, we could see the cracks. And those cracks once you read the report in detail, you'll be able to notice that there's foundational problem. And I heard, I guess, that you can jack it up here, jack it up there, but realistically, we're not talking about one item. We're talking about a list of items that basically would hinder, remodeling that house. It was definitely the intent from the very beginning. We discussed about keeping some of the woods, keeping the aesthetic feeling of it. And the clients definitely loved the character of the house. But once we got in there, that wasn't the condition. So I definitely wanted to give a history and a technical explanation of, why this was brought about this way. We definitely weren't expecting this type of conversation because we had the pre-meeting last time. Then the building inspector came out and, they gave a comment that was very similar, but basically this is being held up by very few items. I believe I'm missing one more item, but I just can't recall at the moment. Okay. Appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
I appreciate those comments. I really do. I just find them unpersuasive because the logic, it kind of like just makes this whole point of having board just pointless, really. I mean, because you can justify anybody, any old building,
Right.
and saying that, oh, we just can't fix it.
At the very least, I would want to continue a continuation on this and ask staff to come back with what our options are as far as ordering like an independent review
Yeah.
or something like that, because
Would you want to, because one of our original recommendations to the applicant was for them to functionally on one of the lots, functionally reconstruct to replicate the existing structure. That was actually with the first meeting on the Zoom, we said, if you can't save it, reconstruction is a form of preservation. If something is structurally unsavable, you can reconstruct it to make it appear as the original, and you can document it and reconstruct it insofar as feasible. That was not heard. And so they wanted to go in this direction with the paired and then the modification. And you can still see it's still kind of a pair, right? But it's just a modified pair.
Mm-hmm.
A functional reconstruction would basically be reconstructing the building. I mean, it sounds to me like you want to save it. Would you be open to a reconstruction if we find out from, we have, let's say Peter and William go out maybe with a contractor that they're comfortable with, because William is a licensed architect and they look at it and they see what they find. And yeah, there's really a lot of things here that maybe it should be reconstruction. Maybe what is your thought on reconstruction?
I hear you say reconstruction on the adjacent.
No, reconstruction. Yeah, so they would build new and then they would reconstruct it. But it would be essentially a new build, but would exactly create a replica of it if it can't be functionally reconstructed.
Okay, we should do that, then we have to put it down.
You would, but
It's gone.
once it's gone, it's gone. Yeah, so what I'm saying is you're asking to go out, but what I'm saying is if we hear, yeah, it's really, it's there's nothing left on the inside. They're going to have to rip it basically all apart and functionally reconstruct it. Would you be open to a total replica as an alternative, just because we need to give them direction?
Me personally, I believe that there's a clear And I don't know because I haven't been inside.
Well, I think that
There's a big difference between an unsafe building and a order to demolish. Okay, in other words, a demolition order, it is, there's no saving grace of it or anything else. I would love to talk to Peter Ringel, and I really would. And have him as part of this thing when it comes back to us, because, you know, can this building be saved? And it is a significant structure, can it be saved? And I have a feeling that it would probably say, yeah, it can be done. And,
the reconstruction for me would be a last resort. If there's no other option, then that would be it.
I just don't want them to spend design time modifying their, if we find that, I don't want them to spend any more money redesigning what they've proposed. If the choice is going to be either fix it or rebuild it, you know, I think we just need to give them, okay, worst case scenario, if we feel like we can support a demolition, that this is your only option.
Well, yeah, that would be, my position would be pens down on a new design. Well, and saying.
Ask the board, I don't know, William, West.
I just want to say that I'm taking back what I said before, then I would like you to act tonight because you have given us a lot to think about. And the owners are not here. And this is a significant investment. They are reasonable people. And, you know, it's worth talking to them. So.
say acting by denying.
Yeah, I would prefer you not act than to deny.
He wants you to continue, which was staff's recommendation.
Right.
Well, that's, I think, where we're all leaning toward. Yeah.
I hope that they get the drift of the board.
Well,
I thought it was
they will watch the meeting, I'm sure.
ready.
So.
Right. And, you know, we could have gave them a clue back in what September, you know, as someone who lives in one of these two-story things downtown built 1920, whatever, it could probably be saved. Depends on the extent of the deterioration, and that's why we need Peter, and that's why we need a continuance.
Yeah, and anyway to speed this up, because I know Wes, I know they've been strung along quite a bit here on this project.
If
So
you wanted to, well, we have our third meeting. No, I mean, the problem is that, so normally our backup meeting is the following Wednesday and we have a backup, but our planning and zoning board got moved because we never keep the planning and zoning board the first Wednesday because otherwise we have to put a packet out at Christmas. It's just that the applicants don't want that. We don't want that. So the planning and zoning board's in our makeup day. When is the next meeting? It's the 8th of February.
Yep, February 8th.
I mean, if you all wanted to come back and do a backup meeting just for this item, these two items, because if you continue this one, you may want to continue the new construction as well. If you wanted to,
on that lot, yeah.
on the east lot. So, so you could, if you can get a quorum, why don't we say this? Why don't we continue it either to the 25th or to February 8th if a quorum on the January 25th cannot be reached? Okay. Does that sound fair?
Yeah.
That way we can get you sooner back and we can do some investigation and move that more quickly.
In that, let's request that Ringles and Waters, Mr. Ringles, Mr. Waters.
We will request that both of them attend and,
Be at the meeting.
yes. Yeah.
I would strongly recommend ask that all members of the board attend as well, since I believe this is a very important issue and that all of us should be weighing in on this. So.
Okay, so we'll go and get quorum, but make sure you say both dates in your motion that it will either be heard at the 25th or if a quorum cannot be reached on the 8th.
Yes.
Yes.
Do you have anything else on the?
Just the next item, which would be the construction on the, because this is a lot split. So it'd be the construction on the east lot, because what you may determine on this may impact that a tiny bit. Because this is so close to the setback, they may need to shift things.
I think what was indicated the consensus that's probably not gonna be an issue. I mean, I don't know, I don't know if I hope, if we're talking about the existing structure would.
Is it a
encroach
foot
on the
over?
setback.
I don't know if it's.
I think we got consensus that it's probably.
It's within a foot of the setback, but it doesn't
These-
the property line.
In order for them to.
Right, but I just, do these two lots already exist?
They actually.
No, that would be, they're saying they're okay with that.
Oh, okay, so they just basically want to have a combination of the 225 lots.
So do you want to go forward if they were?
Right, so I have no issue with.
Yeah,
providing a-
okay.
a-
Annie just confirmed, hold on, gentlemen. Annie just confirmed that the structure is 4.5 feet from the property line. So it would just need a waiver because it would not meet because of the second story wall height. It would not meet the regular setback, but it would also not meet the additional setback required by the second story wall height. So if you're good with saying, yes, we want to save it. Yes, we want you to come back and functionally reconstruct it or totally, because it's going to need a waiver. If this comes back, it'll probably meet like that other one where it triggers the building code. So they're going to need a zoning waiver. So if there's kind of consensus direction that you always support a waiver for this, then we can hear the next case because they would like to hear that case and get moving on that part of their investment. On the east lot.
On the new construction.
Yeah. I don't have an issue with the waiver.
Okay, so then
So we need a motion to continue.
the motion continue would be a motion to continue to the case to January 25th. And if a quorum cannot be reached, then to continue it to the next regularly scheduled meeting on February 8th. And we,
Can we require more than a quorum?
no,
Mhm.
So.
But you can go out on it.
just don't talk about the case.
Yeah.
So that we continue this,
January 25th.
25th or February 8th, depending on the availability of staff and.
And just as a reminder to the board, no ex parte communications on ongoing cases. These are quasi judicial procedures. Do not call each other on the phone and talk about it with each other. Okay. I know you all know, but just as a reminder, not that you were going to do that, but it's just a good.
So we have a motion and a second. All those in favor, aye. Aye. All opposed. Passes unanimously. All right, so let's move on to the next item, HRPB project number 2200100413, consideration of a certificate of appropriateness for the construction of a new 2,834 square foot single family house at 338 Cornell Drive East Lot. Subject property is located in single family residential zoning district and has a future land use designation as single family residential. The property is non-contributing resource in the College Park National and Local Historic District.
That's last. So.
One sec, we're pulling up that presentation.
Sorry, we had so much going on. I lost the track of where all the presentations were, so. All right, East Lot, here we go.
All right, so as always, this is Annie Greening, Senior Preservation Planner for the city. We'll go pretty quickly through the location map since we're all very familiar with where we're talking about. The lot right next door. So this lot has always been vacant. It was platted 1924. It was vacant then. It's vacant now. We've not ever had a building on here. So no demolition or any concerns in that regard. We've got our proposed site plan. And then if you'll go next, this is actually the same streetscape you've seen before with both the proposed new buildings. And if we go to the elevations on the next slide, this is a much more modern building. They chose to go with a more streamlined, modern type of building here. As we've discussed, that is their right. This is one of the styles discussed in our design guidelines. And so staff evaluated it based on that style that they chose. Next, please. So we've got our side elevations, and if you'll go again, we've got our floor plans just showing that interior space, and our renderings are on the next slide, giving us a 3D view. Okay. If you'll go forward again, Aaron. So just like the last one, this meets all of the zoning requirements except for that FAR. And once again, they are getting that additional 0.05 of FAR accounted for through LEED certification or Florida Green Building certification. So they are accounting for all of those concerns. We can go next. Oh, like the last one, similar issues with the interior garage space. So we asked them and we conditioned that they would increase that interior garage space to fit the length of a car. Okay, so here we are again at guidelines for new construction. We do contend that this is designed with the elements of streamlined, modern in an authentic way. It is compatible in height. It is similar to other two-story buildings that are on that same block. The flat roof shape is compatible not only with this style, but with a lot of the other styles that are in the area. The windows are balanced, visually compatible with the style they're going for, and that smooth stucco is common for many styles in that district. We'll go next to our design guidelines. So it uses materials, form, detailing, all of these elements that are consistent with the streamlined modern style. They've included elements like the porthole window on the facade, that's that circular window, projecting eyebrows, which are those kind of almost little roof-like elements that project out from the elevations, and detailing that emphasizes horizontality throughout the structure. So if we go to the next slide, Aaron. Staff, oh, back one. There we go. Staff does recommend approval with conditions as drafted for the new construction on the east lot. We believe that it is generally consistent with the preservation ordinance and our design guidelines as it is proposed currently. So as always, we've got our conditions of approval on the next slide and our motions at the very end.
They're pretty much our standard conditions.
Yep, standard conditions with the requirements for that green building and that additional space in the garage.
Okay. Do we have any further presentation from the applicant?
Let's be brief. We are in 100% agreement with the staff report and find that it is consistent with the comprehensive plan and it is a very cohesive design. And we are amenable to all the conditions of approval, including the adjustment of the garage size. Stephen, if you want to chime in too, we did some changes based on September's meeting that talked about the side light, the front door, and other changes that we did to the structure.
Can you hear me? Yeah. Okay. Yes, as per staff request, basically we added some side lights at the front entrance. We will move the garage to be 20 feet deep. I believe we worked a little bit on the heights as well. Basically updating some of that. And any other staff comments we basically address. I think one of them was providing a little bit more pattern in that feature that sticks out. And then the other comment was making both buildings very distinguishable, basically.
One other major change that I think it makes it a much better project is that we flipped the building so that the garage was on the east side and the second floor porch was on the east side as well. So instead of getting a clear view of Dixie Highway, you have a nice view of the neighborhood from the second floor.
All right. Do we have any further public comment?
Can I swear now? He doesn't have to be sworn in. It's
My name is Mark Berry. I own the property directly east of this. And my only concern with this is that balcony that runs the entire length of the house. It's 5 feet from the property line. You can't see my house there, but it would, if, you know, it would overlooks my backyard, and it's just, if they go on their balcony, I'd be like, so it's just, there'd be zero privacy for me. And yeah, that's about all I have. I just don't like that design at all.
Mr. Chairman, to the privacy issue, if you all wanted to add a condition of approval, to require, shade trees, along the side, and, some, more substantial hedge material, that would provide a little more screening for you for privacy.
After that,
I would certainly agree to that.
I was going to ask if that would be an option. I don't know if in 5 feet we would get any shade trees in there, but some sort of vegetative screening or something like that.
If
I
it was
think
a
would be
shade
good.
tree, the branches would come over on your yard.
Yeah.
Is that okay to you? Okay.
Actually, I'm kind of bummed that I'm gonna lift my shade tree. There's nothing I can do about that, but there's a big, huge, was a lychee tree, I think. It provides shade all along, so I can go up back and have some shade, but I
If
understand. I've
he's
gotta come
amenable
down.
if you're amenable to the branches coming over to provide that, they can plant it on their side, and then we've had that before with screening with properties that are in close proximity with height. We've asked, the neighbors have worked together to agree to have additional shade trees to provide privacy for both.
Because they would, literally looking right down on me.
Wes, you think your applicant would be cool with some shade trees back there?
Sure. Well, that's all I have.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. We need to specify that at time of planning or
What we'll do is, they have to, if they have a tree on there, they're gonna need to have some mitigation when they go through permit. Otherwise, they're gonna have to cut the city a big check. So what we'll do is, they're gonna need to reduce their mitigation if they have a big lychee over there. So,
Beautiful tree.
and they're delicious for sure,
Any comments or questions from the board?
We're approving this design for the lot. Correct. Regardless of what happens on the west part of the lot. All right. And for the same reasons, we were talking, I thought you were gonna say something.
Taking up too much time earlier.
Well, you're certain neighborhoods. We appreciate the balance.
Yeah.
But then that's what you will be looking at instead. And again, I don't have a problem with our modern architecture, even put in to a historical, context. But I thought you just wanted to say something. Make sure that
Okay.
of course.
It's a new item here.
I'll make it brief. What?
But you have to, if you do it right, you have to get up and say your name and your address, and then.
Still Alicia O'Hara
And maybe this time, I limit at 3 minutes.
at 331 Cornell Drive. It's a nice design for I think, different kind of neighborhood. What I really liked was the staff, I think it was a staff edition of what they showed, like it was a one-story house. That kind of mission style, whatever you're gonna call it. And something like that, I think would be really beautiful. And I think it would be really appropriate for the street. That to me looks really modern. I know we have other modern homes, but they're all one story. And they don't take up so much visual space. That's all.
Thank you. Any other board comments?
That was the other neighbor. I think it's a beautiful house. And they're starting to build a few of these around College Park, and I think they blend in a little bit,
I mean, I think one of the pluses of a new build like this is that you don't want to have something coming in that somebody might mistake as being part of the historic fabric that's been there this whole time. And so you're going to have pockets here and there of newer builds that are going to come in or whatever, and then I think actually the historic buildings may stand out even more because of the appreciation of the older buildings that are there. So that's just my take on it. But all right, if there's no other questions or comments, do I have a motion?
I move to approve the Hrpb project number 22-00100413 with staff recommendation and condition for the construction of a new plus or minus 2,834 square foot single family home at 338 Cornell Drive East Lot, based upon competent substantial evidence in the staff report pursuant to the city of Lake Hrpb planning development regulation, code preservation required.
And just to clarify, that also includes additional shade, an additional shade tree or shade trees as approved by staff to maximize privacy of the adjacent lot.
I would say shade tree and screening.
Shade trees and screening.
Yes.
Okay.
And then there was the garage. That was in the conditions of approval. Okay.
Mhm.
So we have a motion. Do we have a second? What's that? Yeah. Okay. We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay? Approved unanimously. Thank you.
We're not done yet, gentlemen.
All right. So now we are moved on to planning issues.
No, conceptual review. Oh, yeah, there are planning issues. I forgot. Sorry. Okay, we have.
302 Fordham, Aaron. And then if you could let, we've got a couple people on Zoom that are here, property owners and the architect for this project. Yes, this is a conceptual review for a potential new guest house and garage structure, as well as a porch addition. So Aaron, could you pull up the PowerPoint for this one?
Hold on 1 second. I got a lot happening here. A lot of buttons I'm pushing.
Okay, so we're moving slightly over in College Park to 302 Fordham Drive. This is another contributing resource in the National and Local Historic District. And we're talking about potential new additions and construction of a garage and guest house. So Aaron, if you could go to the next page. So we've got our location map. This is a large lot on the corner of Fordham and Pennsylvania Drive. So a lot of this lot is very visible from the street. If you go to the next slide again, so we've got some photos of the existing structure. It's built to the one side of it, and it's got kind of similar to the lot we were just looking at, a big empty space next to it. They're not looking to split it. This was built in 1925, mission style. It's contributing. And if you can keep going, Aaron, we've got a couple other photos just to get a little more sense of it in 3D, and we can keep going. So this is our current survey that we've got showing the existing house. There was at one point a garage structure that was built along with the house that was demolished back in 2009. That's correct. Yep. And so we'll go again to the next slide. So we're going to kind of go through the existing and proposed side by side where we can. So this is the first floor. So you can see it gets a little funky with all the black and white lines, but what they're proposing on this first story is that in the rear, a new guest house and garage connected to one another. And then on the west side of the historic structure to add a large kind of two-story porch and balcony. So Aaron, if you could go to the next slide again. So here you can see the proposed new accessory structure would just be one story, and that porch addition would be used as a balcony on the second story or a terrace. And so Aaron, one more. So here we have our existing elevations, all four sides of it. That top left corner is the part that's facing Fordham Drive right now, the front. Right below that is the rear, and then we've got both side elevations on the side there. And Aaron, if you could go forward again. So these are the proposed new elevations. I will give kind of a disclaimer that in these 2D drawings, it can be hard to see the depth of how far back that new accessory structure really will be. It can get hard to have that visual depth. But you can see to the left, we've got that 1-story new structure and that 2-story balcony. And Aaron, if you could go to the next slide again, here we've got the other 2 elevations. You can see another side of that new porch, as well as kind of the front of that proposed garage. And one more slide, Aaron. So the applicants have already worked with staff to make some alterations to the proposed project and get it to what you're looking at today. Remaining staff comments mostly concern balancing compatibility and differentiation. So we want the new elements of the structure and the new accessory structure to be compatible with what's there, but we want to make sure that it doesn't falsify history by acting as though it was what was always there. So there are a bunch of different ways that you can kind of get creative with differentiating those. We've listed a bunch there. One of the most common is using just a different stucco texture. Yeah, it just shows that these are different, you know, one and the other. Doing a different roof design if they wanted to do, you know, maybe a tiled roof on the new structure rather than a flat roof with that parapet. Using a different style of windows that's still compatible. All of those things are kind of that nuanced conversation of differentiation that we're still working on in this early stage. And Aaron, if you could go to, I think that might be the end. We do have the architect as well as the property owners here on Zoom tonight. If you'd like to ask them questions or hear from them as well. No, not based on, I've done kind of a quick zoning check. And at this point, no, there would not need to be any waivers.
Was that a
Yeah, so it was, I think, shown on the existing, there's not currently a pool. There are, yeah, they may at one point apply to put in a pool on that big side yard, but there's not one currently.
basically the back project, like pseudo guest quarters, cabana house, get them a pool went in.
Correct. Yep. And that pool would be generally pools are done at the staff level.
Right.
Yeah.
Shows the floor plan and then the.
Sure. Yeah. Aaron, actually, we do have the PDF of the floor plans, if that would be a little easier to zoom in on those. Let's do that. So we've got the existing, and then I think starting on page 4, we have the proposed floor plans.
Here we go. Yep. So they've got the garage, the living area, bathroom, a bar. No. Looks like like a vestibule, little entrance.
This is separated, this is a totally different structure. It's not separate, it's not connected to the.
How many 10 feet away?
Okay, before we get too far into it, you said that the architect and owner were on,
Yep, they are both on Zoom.
so if they'd like to speak.
Mr. Harris, you have to hit okay. I keep promoting you, but until you say okay, you can't be promoted to panelist, and you have to be a panelist so we can see you and hear you. Mr. Menard, you are on if you want to turn on your video.
1 second. Can you hear me?
Yes, and we can see you, sir.
Yes. So actually, the main comment I would like to make is that we received a list of comments from staff, and the comments are all very reasonable. I think we can address all of the concerns. In the last couple of days, I think we've actually addressed many of them. We had metal railings, we had a breezeway between the garage and the house. So we did address most of the comments, but I think we are more at the short strokes of, the types of windows, the texture and stucco, that kind of thing. So we're very open to any suggestion, and that's why we're here this evening. But everything seemed to be absolutely reasonable and acceptable to us as far as the staff comments.
So I guess from the board, is there a feeling or are you content to let staff work it out? As far as the differentiation, we talked about utilizing a different texture and then changing the window design was another option.
Is the owner of this property a resident?
Sorry, I can't, you're too far away from the microphone. I can't hear at all. Yeah.
Is the owner the resident?
Yes, he is. I believe so.
Right.
Who's Mr. Gaines? I believe he's part of their team.
He should be on.
Yeah, he just popped on.
I think he is, yeah. I'm not sure.
So Mr. Gaines and Mr. Harris, if you don't say okay, when I promote you, you can't be promoted and talk. So you have to hit that okay. There. I know Mr. Gaines wasn't sworn in, but this is just conceptual review. You guys are not making a decision tonight, so.
Okay.
Here you go. Hi, this is Mr. Gaines. I'm here with Michael Harris.
So, Mr. Harris, you need to mute yourself or you need to get off of Zoom. You're getting feedback. So I'm going to actually kick you out, okay? So we don't get the feedback.
Okay,
All
okay. I think we corrected the issue.
There
All
we
right,
go.
so Michael has some comments to make for the board.
We just want to thank you for working with us. We agree with all of your suggestions thus far. We're in the hands of our architect. He's steering us in the right direction, and we're open to your further comments. Thank you.
We also would just like the addition to, we understand the idea of differentiation so that there's no false history created, but we would also like for our addition to mesh with the house nicely too, as it is now. So I think that's a discussion to have in the future.
For sure. And differentiation can just be as simply as differentiating the stucco texture and like maybe making some small changes. It doesn't have to be we want it to mesh. We definitely want the code requires it to mesh, but it also requires it so that you realize, hey, maybe this part was done a little bit later, and it doesn't have to be a dramatic change from one to another. So
okay, thank you for that clarification.
So board members, do you have any differentiation that you would like to see, or are you comfortable just having them continue to work with staff on that?
Yeah, I'm comfortable with them working with staff. I mean, the first thing that popped into my mind is if, like the differentiation of the stucco, that the original building seems to have a rough stucco on it. If it was a smooth stucco, that kind of thing. I think your suggestions were all good. I just was wondering if staff had any comments on the addition of the porch.
So the addition of the porch was one of the things that we have helped kind of revise so far. Originally, when it came in, they were proposing an entirely wraparound porch from the front to the side. So one of the edits that we've made so far is leaving that front porch intact and alone and just having it be a side porch. Because of where this is situated on the lot right now, that side porch still is pretty visible. If it were, situated as a lot of these houses are, it would probably have a lot less visual impact. As it's currently proposed, it is at least, very recessed from the original structure. And so we felt more comfortable with it looking separate and different. You could still kind of see the historic structure as a unit and the porch as kind of a separate element that was added.
And I think that's really the important piece for differentiation is not that you can't ever add to a house, but the way that you add to it has to show that it's and in that could, you may only be able to discern it if you're a professional, but that's important to maintain the historical integrity of the house so that when people are evaluating it for contributing status, they're going to go up, but they're going to be like, oh, here's the original and here's the addition. And that the original fabric of the principal historic structure is intact. So as long as that's not deteriorating that historic structure and it's just kind of adding on, that's okay.
And it kind of gets to a concept of reversibility that gets thrown around in preservation circles where, this is a very distinct external addition onto this structure where theoretically 50 years from now, if someone said, oh my gosh, I need it to go exactly back to how it was, you could take off this new addition, just fix the stucco where it used to stick on for the porch and have the old structure continue to exist as it was.
So, so we're discussing. how
Okay, understood.
It's actually attached to the primary structure. Okay, so that has got to differentiate as well as the separate structure.
Yeah, and that's
Actually more important to differentiate the one that's attached.
That's where I was coming from. So, just out of
Yes.
curiosity, when does the
Right.
the porch become a contributing structure so that
In 50
So,
years.
Yeah, 50 years usually is when additions and alterations become historic and contributing in their own right to the story of kind of change over time.
right? Okay, yeah, that's basically all I have. I think you
Okay.
guys are working on it really well.
So,
That's great. Thank you for that. And we own about
we
Oh,
lost you.
Mr. Gaines, I think you cut out.
restoration, so we're happy to. Oh, hello, can you hear me?
Yeah,
We
you
can't
cut
now.
out there for a bit. So
Hello?
Yeah, it's okay, but I think
Oh,
we'll just
sorry about that.
after the fact. So thank you so
Okay,
much.
great. Thank you. We appreciate it. Okay, bye-bye.
Thank you, gentlemen. Have a good evening. So I think that concludes our regularly scheduled things.
Erin, we do have 2 department reports.
Well, we have
So
public
sorry.
comment.
Okay,
first, so we don't have any public comment.
They all left.
do we have any public comment from online or anything? No. Okay, we're good.
So, and we
Department
do.
reports.
Yes, so we do have a departmental report. The city commission has asked all advisory boards to provide a quarterly reporting to them on what's going on with their board.
So like a 5-minute verbal, here's what the HRPB has done in the last 3 months.
So,
Go on YouTube. We watch them, they can watch us. And I know we're being recorded, but vice versa. If you write a report, I'm not a school.
so you don't have to write a report. It's a verbal report. So,
We should say it now.
no, you have to say it. They want somebody to come to the city commission
Oh.
and report out verbally to them.
You're the chairman.
So it doesn't have to be the chairman, but being as there's 3 of you left and neither one of you want to do it, Steve, you just got ganged up on.
How about the board member that doesn't appear and previous hearing?
So you will have another meeting. This is just a warning. You don't have to decide anything tonight, but at the next meeting in February, you will need to formally designate somebody and then have a discussion about what you would like that person to present to the board, because the report should come from the board as a whole. So we should provide some guidance to the person that you all are sending to the city commission on what you would like to share with the city commission about what you all are working on.
What if the city commission asks some questions of the member that shows up, about the rest of this one? Yeah, that's right.
Right.
They just wanted, the idea is that it's supposed to be quick and 5 minutes. I don't even know if a staff member will be there for it. I think it's just going to be the board member reporting out on what the board's doing. I'm not sure if staff is going to even be required to attend.
Rotate.
4 times per year.
Mhm.
And so Steve put it on the agenda. Who's gonna be?
Steve said he was gonna do it.
So you all will select the person next month, okay? Let's not gang up on Steve tonight because it's late. Although he is the chair. So your reporting dates are March 7th, June 6th, September 5th, and November 28th.
These are technically suggested dates. You do just have to show up once per quarter. If you can't make the suggested date, you just need to show up a different date that you tell us.
You have to submit what you say.
No, you just go up and say it.
So, like,
We talk about what we're gonna say.
I don't think that-
So we need to add the item onto the agenda, but you don't have to give like a written report. Yeah.
We're not gonna write anything. We're gonna say Steve's gonna show up in March to go. Steve Pickett representing the HRPB.
All right.
We do have one other quick departmental report / piece of homework for you all. We would love you to come to February's meeting or via email with some nomination ideas for our upcoming HP awards. So new constructions, additions, rehab, preservation of materials.
Sherry's.
We will be following up by email to remind you. Yeah.
Annie will email you the reminder.
I mean, rather than us going through all our for the last year, could we get them? I mean, it's not that many. We get 2 or 3 properties per meeting and we have 10, 12 meetings. That's not a lot. We get a list of addresses.
Yeah,
You know, at least a dozen of, you know, I mean, we could all think of 2 or 3 that we think are awesome, like the one on the west side.
Well, the thing is, from our perspective, once we approve whatever's done, it's kind of out.
Well, all of the reports and all of the agendas are online too. We can provide the list of addresses, but they're all on the advisory. So I'm just saying, like, for people in the public too, if they want to go and as a reminder, so we can give you all a list, but everything that we do is still remains online.
Right.
The YouTube videos are like, if you want it, so if somebody wants to see how something fleshed out or versus how it was constructed, staff is going to have their own nominations as well. So we're hoping, but anybody can nominate somebody.
Like I said, once we approve it at the board level, kind of, we don't really see. You guys are more involved in what the permitting and what the end result is.
If you think back and you remember something that you were like, oh, that's really interesting. And I don't know that we've gotten one of the ones constructed yet, which had one of the elevation components. You know, there was that really interesting one that was going to be a Dutch colonial, remember the doctor? And he had a base flood elevation and it was on the water. And he did a really nice adaptation. Did that ever get constructed?
I think I know the one you're talking about. It's in permitting right now. So that is a caveat. We do need these things to be constructed.
Yeah, but I think maybe for next year, that category or that as a nomination for new construction for best adaptation for base flood elevation and sense in historic context. You know, if there's a good example that we see after some of these are constructed and rolled out and we're like, yes, that one, you know.
30 Lakeside North. Isn't that a good property? That modern?
Yeah, I know that when you're talking about if they can get it done by May or whenever.
It's looking good. That's a cool house.
Yeah, Yen and I have that on our list.
All right, well, that's it for us. So.
All right, any board comments? All right, I guess we're adjourned.